health insurance. You get to pick and choose which ones you would like for your particular health needs. You send it back into the federal government, and then they send in $15,000 on your behalf to pay for that, that coverage. That's the difference. That's the proposed change. And that changes the trajectory of the dollars that are going to be spent over the next 10, 20, and outwards of 75 years. So we can ensure that Medicare is preserved. And I think it should be preserved. I think everybody should have, and most people have decided that that is going to be their health care. You've planned for it. So we want to do something about it. Now, that may not be the final plan that is adopted by Congress. I am more than willing to consider other options and alternatives, but so far that's the only proposal that has been made in Congress. So I'm hoping that if that proposal doesn't meet the needs of Americans, that other proposals come forward. And then we can have a dialogue in this country about what makes the best sense. But I would add this. Let's have it in a constructive, positive, proactive way. Let's do better than what we have seen. What we saw over the past couple of months is someone who looks like Paul Ryan pushing someone who's in their 80s off of a cliff. Now, I think most people know that that is meant and designed to frighten people who are receiving Medicare. That's what we have reduced a very emotional, a very serious issue to. I think we can do better, and I think you deserve better. I think we all deserve better. So as a member, I am on the Budget Committee. I do work with all members on that committee. We do have differences of opinions, no question about it. That's what a democracy or a republic is all about. But I am hopeful that we can find some sort of solution, because if we don't, the trustees would be proven correct in 12 years, and I don't want to see that happen.
Thank you, Congressman. The next question, Elizabeth Zotto, had a question regarding the budget. Okay. Joe O'Rourke had a question regarding the budget.
Thank you very much for coming and taking that question.
Yeah, thank you too.
My question is this, maybe you can explain to all of us, because I can't understand it for the life of me. Yesterday in USA Today, 1,470 people making over $1 million paid no taxes at all. We also have about 46% of the people in this country from the latest tax data, which might go to 2010, but I think it's 2009, that paid no taxes at all for exemptions, for poverty level, etc. In addition to that, we have companies in the United States that pay no taxes at all, like GE for offshore offices, etc. And then we have congressional members like yourself taking a pledge saying to Mr. Norquist, we won't raise taxes. The simple matter is this: we have a country that's in debt. We need to pull it out. We need both program cuts. We have 2 wars going on, one of which is costing us $2 billion a week. And we have a Congress that's telling us we don't need to raise taxes on the The logic is not there by any stretch of the imagination. How can you stand there in front of all of us and take a pledge not to raise taxes?
Look up the 1920 Depression.
I don't believe that our problem in this country is that we don't receive enough money from taxpayers. I think we have a problem with how we spend
We have all paid taxes. We're talking about the extremely wealthy. the people that were millionaires that are now billionaires.
Koch brothers.
Okay, let me.
We're in dire straits.
Hold on, wait a minute. I understand that there's differences of opinion in the room. That's
You like
okay.
that. You said you like that.
It's a fact. We're all going to have differences of opinion. But, you know, I'm here, you're here. Let's have a civil dialogue. I personally don't believe that the government spends your money or anyone's money as efficiently as it could. Therefore, I have a hard time saying that we should take more of it to allow the government to waste it.
Well, how about the people?
Let me may I finish? I'd be happy to finish and answer your question. I'd be happy. There was a lot of different components of it. I'd be happy to answer it. The proposal that the president has is not for millionaires and billionaires. I mean, he says it on TV all the time. He says millionaires and billionaires. What he's talking about is a family or a small business owner earning $250,000. Those are two very different individuals. Well, look, I'd love to answer your question. I think there are many different ways we can generate revenue to the Treasury. I don't believe that we have to raise tax rates to do it. And let me go through a couple things. First of all, we have 15 million people out of work. Imagine if we actually had a scenario where we got half of those people back to work. There's some revenue right there, number one. Number two, you talked about GE. I wrote an op-ed about a month ago, and I identified GE as an example of how the tax code is unfair. It was in the Union Leader. I don't think, now what they did was they utilized the tax code to carry forward losses, and they didn't pay taxes. What I believe is that every single individual, every single business, every single corporation should be treated the same way. So individuals should be treated the same way, the businesses and corporations should be treated the same way. That is not happening right now. There is bipartisan support in the House to address that, and we actually took it up in the budget, and we directed the Ways and Means Committee, which is the committee of jurisdiction, to bring forth legislation that provides tax reform to get rid of those inequities in the tax code. And I think most Americans, regardless of party affiliation, believe that we should do that, and I do too. I absolutely do. There is a feeling in this country of unfairness, that some get treated differently than others. And we shouldn't do that, so we are addressing that component of it. Relative to the war, so long as we can complete the mission and complete it quickly, I agree. Bring our troops home. I've made that statement many times publicly. I was one of the few Republicans that voted against my leadership when it came to the position on Libya, right? And I voted to bring our troops home and all of our forces home immediately. Immediately. And I think that was reflective of New Hampshire and what New Hampshire's position is, especially considering the fiscal challenges we have. Now, there is more, and there was a lot of bipartisan support for that position in the House. I understand that there's frustration. We come home, we watch TV, and we see the fighting and the bickering on the different news stations. Some of that happens, but it's not all the time. There are good, decent people on both sides of the aisle who are trying to work together to address some of the things that you brought up. Now, I'll be the first one to say we're not going to agree on every single thing. But there are substantive things that you just mentioned that we agree on. Now, I would prefer, on the tax side, to get, actually, what I think we need to reform the whole budget process, and here's how I would do it. The first thing we ought to do is go to a biennial budget in this country. Here's why. Year one, we would budget for a 2-year period. And year two, of course, that would require that the House pass a budget and the Senate pass a budget, and then you have a committee conference, you hash it out, you make the agreement, the President signs it all. Year two would be all about oversight. Every member of Congress would be sitting on a committee of jurisdiction who would oversee the dollars that they just appropriated and make sure that every tax dollar is being utilized effectively and efficiently. And I'll give you 2 examples, Medicare and Medicaid. Between the 2 of them last year, you know how much the government wasted? Almost $100 billion between the 2 programs. That's money that can be going back into those systems for people who are needing the assistance in Medicaid and for benefits that we wouldn't have to modify on Medicare. But our government is not doing that right now. I've only been here 7 months, I can't answer that one, but I can tell you what I am advocating for that kind of approach, to change the way we budget, to give individuals more power and more authority over how their dollars are spent. And to me, I don't think that's a Republican idea. I think that just makes perfect sense. And there is, again, bipartisan support for that. So I'm hoping that the mark that the 87 new Republicans and the 9 new Democrats can make in this Congress is to bring some of those kinds of common sense ideas, bring them to the table, and show some of the members who have been there 10 or 20 years how America would like its country to be run. Those are, you know, some of those principles are things that I did when I was mayor. Some worked, some didn't. Some were supported, some were not. But you got to keep trying. You got to keep putting ideas out there and making sure that you can articulate why it makes sense and go get the votes for it. That's what I feel my job is. My job isn't to sit down there and pontificate and then come back once a year. My job is to come back every weekend, as I do, every time we're not in session, every time we're not voting or in committee, and talk with people and try to get those ideas, get your sense of what direction you want me to go on. So I am optimistic that we can do it. I really believe we can. And that's what I'm committed to doing. Yes?
Thank you, Congressman. Next question from Elena Kelly Cosia, I believe, regarding debt and jobs.
I just wanted to, first of all, thank you, because last year I was trying, or the year before, I was trying to get some of the representatives and so on, and when I was calling their offices to find out when they were having town hall meetings, in the middle of August, they still didn't even have their August schedules. So I appreciate you taking the time and meeting us.
Well, on August 2nd, I didn't know what my August schedule was.
I was on August 15th.
I will tell you that.
But I just wanted to say, I know we all lived through the TARP and the stimulus, and I worry for this country, what's next. I wonder how you feel now that we're going to be approximately $2 trillion more in debt. We've lost our bond rating. I see this country heading in the wrong direction. I wonder when someone is going to tackle the tough subjects that people don't want to talk about in this room, and I haven't, frankly, want to talk about it either. I've always kept my head in the sand and never been politically involved. And I think a lot has to do with pensions, and again, Social Security. I'm 55, I'm heading there too. Medicare, Medicaid. I hear people talking about cutting the defense budget. I am totally against the war in Libya. I agree with you, we should be bringing the troops home as quickly as possible if this isn't going to end in a victory. It's just, I don't want to see us wasting our time in human life. I have 2, or actually 4 kids in the Army. One has just been sent on his 4th deployment. One's going back to Afghanistan next month on his 4th deployment. I don't want to see the defense budget cut where our troops are in harm, even more, greater harm. My question would be, why aren't we cutting back on programs that we know are wasteful? Dare I say, there's a lot of people on Medicaid that are absolutely stealing from us and have their hands in our pockets that shouldn't, and there should be some type of either screening or something where we've got to cut back on this fraud. I mean, it's rampant, and we all know it. And I also wonder what's going to happen when Obamacare kicks in and we have